Namo Amida Butsu. Introduction by Gansen John Welch. I wrote these 4 new poems to thank and honor my teachers, Reverend Josho, Adrian, Cirlea, and Paul Roberts, as well as our Amida Dharma Masters, Nagarjuna, Vasubandhu, Tan-Luan, Daochuo, Shandao, Genshin, Honen, and Shinran, without whom I could not have found and understood, in my case to some small extent, Amida Dharma and my utter helplessness trapped in the endless suffering of samsara. Never forget these wise words from Tannisho by Yuienbo. Quote, "As I humbly reflect on the past when the late Master Shinran was alive, and the present in my foolish mind, I cannot but lament the divergences from the true shinjin that he conveyed by speaking to us directly, and I fear there are doubts and confusions in the way followers receive and transmit the teaching. For how is entrance into the single gate of easy practice possible unless we happily come to rely on a true teacher whom conditions bring us to encounter? Let there be not the slightest distortion of the teaching of other power with words of an understanding based on personal views." End quote. My hope is that readers and listeners will find that certain words, phrases, ideas, and concepts in these poems resonate with their past and present experience and prove to be helpful and meaningful in increasing their understanding of this profound and precious Amida Dharma. I would encourage readers and listeners to share these PDFs and recordings with family and friends, especially the audio recordings for those who may have difficulties with reading, so that as many people as possible may benefit. I also hope that these verses help others and motivate them to find a good teacher like Reverend Josho, Adrian, Cirlea, listen deeply to Amida Dharma, and think and say, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, Amida Buddha. Homage to Amida Buddha. I take refuge in Amida Buddha. Pleasure and Pain by Gansen John Welch. 1 second of excruciating pain obliterates a long lifetime of pleasure. Of this fact you can be utterly sure. No worldly power, rewards or gain can free you from this Saha world's stifling chains that shackle us to samsara's ceaseless sufferings. And only one thing can bring permanent relief from all the grief that comes with unenlightened life, a slave from the cradle to the grave to all of ego's endless cravings, attachment, folly, grasping, and profound ignorance. Your only chance to escape from this karmically created hell is to read and listen to Amida Dharma and tell all to have complete faith and trust in Amida Tathagata and the primal vow of Amida Buddha. So proclaimed all the great saints and sages through all the ages. This inconceivable gift that is beyond price, it alone will completely suffice to carry us to Amida's pure land and Amida's helping hand, transfers to us Amida's immeasurable merit, enabling us to quit forever the unenlightened life of horror, terror, and strife, and eternally dwell in Amida's light and love that permeates all realms below and above. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, Amida Buddha. Homage to Amida Buddha. I take refuge in Amida Buddha. These verses were inspired by the following passage from pages 150 to 153 of Reverend Josho Adrian Cirlea's excellent book, The Meaning of Faith and Nembutsu in Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. Quote, "The way to faith, listening deeply to Amida Dharma. What can we do in order to receive faith or shinjin? We should listen deeply to the teaching about Amida's indiscriminate salvation until we understand it and accept it with our mind and heart. Master Renyo said, regardless of our doubts, If we listen intently with our entire being, we will be given shinjin because of great compassion. The Buddha's teaching begins and ends in hearing. So, in our tradition, listening to the teaching is the most important practice. You have to listen again and again, and one day you will become open enough so as to entrust completely to Amida Buddha. The words, "we will be given shinjin because of great compassion," shows that shinjin comes from Amida, as I explained in the previous chapter. But the first part, if we listen intently with our entire being, shows what we have to do if we wish to receive the gift of faith from Amida. There is a good poem on this. Quote, "Uncover your cup to receive the Dharma rain, then faith in the Nembutsu will naturally arise." End quote. The author of these verses is Jason Rannick, an American Pure Land follower. If one does not listen deeply to the teaching, but is filled with ideas of self-power or keeps oneself under the influence of various non-Buddhist religions, he cannot receive shinjin, nor say the genuine Nembutsu, which is the natural manifestation of shinjin. Faith and Nembutsu are not forcibly imposed in our hearts by Amida Buddha. So if somebody does not show interest in the Buddha's teaching, and especially in the teaching about the primal vow of Amida, he cannot receive shinjin. Here are some examples of listening deeply to Amida Dharma. Think that solving the matter of repeated births and deaths is the most important thing in your life. Put aside all other Buddhist or non-Buddhist teachings, philosophies and opinions, and listen. Remember, reading is also listening only to Amida Dharma. Put aside what you think you know and listen to what Amida Dharma has to say. Empty your cup or your mind of your so-called personal wisdom and stay open to receive the nectar of Dharma. Consider that you know nothing and that Amida Dharma knows everything. Read the most simple and essential texts of our school. Listen with a devotional mind and heart. Listen again and again, that is constantly, in the manner described above. Ask questions if you have doubts or if there's something you don't understand. Study the answers carefully and without hurry, and ask again if you need to. Engage in a Dharma dialogue, but not debates, with people who are already established in faith and who do not embrace wrong views. Think on the testimony of Shakyamuni Buddha himself, and also of so many wonderful masters like Nagarjuna, Vasubandhu, Shandao, Honen, Shinran, Renyo, etc., who accepted the existence of Amida Buddha and the reality of his salvation. Always ask Amida Buddha for guidance, bow to him, and say his name even if you are not yet established in faith. No matter how many doubts you have or how awkward it might be at the beginning, find some time to sit with Amida Buddha and ask him for guidance. Give a chance to the idea that he and his salvation are real. You really have nothing to lose if you accept Amida's salvation. On the contrary, you gain everything. You will be born in the Pure Land at the end of this life and become a Buddha. Your suffering in the repeated births and deaths will be over, and you will be capable of truly helping others, especially your dear ones. Please also meditate on what you have to lose if you do not accept the existence of Amida Buddha and the reality of his salvation. The chance you now have to be in a human body and listen to Amida Dharma might not be met in thousands and thousands of lives. So just give it a try and do the above things for some time. End quote. Namo Amida Butsu. The Age of Dharma Decline, or Meto, by Gansen John Welch. Human life is like skating on very thin ice, where in a trice we could fall through into the icy cold darkness and drown, but all too few realize how easily it is to fall down into the dark and deep realms of the bardo and death, and that with every breath and every day we decline and decay. How fragile and uncertain is this brief existence, full of grief, sadness, badness, and madness, subject to cruelty and evil, inflicted upon us by demon-possessed devils. Desperately and helplessly we search for any exit, but find with thinking hearts that none exist, our minds overcome with deep despair, we realize the terrible reality that very few care, until, at long, long last, the ripening of good karmic seeds from the past help us to find a good teacher of Amida Dharma who helps us understand that the only cure for evil karma is the other power path of Amida Buddha and his primal vow in saying the Nimbutsu. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, Amida Buddha. Homage to Amida Buddha. I take refuge in Amida Buddha. These verses were inspired by the following passage from pages 15 to 17 of Tannisho, lamenting the divergences by Yuienbo, a close disciple of Shinran Shonen. Quote, on the assertion you should believe that the grave karmic evil binding you to birth and death for 8 billion kalpas is eradicated through a single utterance of the name. It is asserted, based on the Contemplation Sutra, that there are persons of the 10 transgressions and 5 grave offences who, although they have passed their lives without saying the Nimbutsu, at the time of death, urged by the instruction of a good teacher, come to say it for the first time. In one utterance, 8 billion kalpas of karmic evil are eradicated, or in 10 utterances, 10 times 8 billion kalpas of grave karmic evil are eradicated, and thus they attain birth. It appears that one utterance and 10 utterances are taught in order to make us know the gravity of the 10 transgressions and 5 grave offences. Those who assert the above, however, speak only of the benefit of eradicating evil. This falls far short of the teaching that we have accepted. For by virtue of being shone upon by Amida's light, we receive diamond-like shinjin, when the one-thought moment of entrusting arises within us. Hence, already in that instant, Amida takes us into the stage of the truly settled, and when our lives end, all our blind passions and obstructions of evil being transformed, we are brought to realize insight into the non-origination of all existence. Thus, the Nimbutsu that we say throughout a lifetime with the thought, if it were not for this compassionate vow, how could such wretched evildoers as ourselves gain emancipation from birth and death, should be recognized as entirely the expression of our gratitude for the benevolence and our thankfulness for the virtuous working of the Tathagata's great compassion. To believe that each time you say the name your karmic evil is eradicated is nothing but to strive to attain birth by eliminating your karmic evil through your own efforts. In that case, you can attain birth only by being diligent in the Nimbutsu to the very point of death. For every single thought you have throughout the course of your life is a fetter binding you to birth and death. But since our karmic recompense restricts us, we may, meeting with various unforeseen accidents, or being tormented by the pain of sickness, reach the end of our lives without dwelling in right-mindedness. In such circumstances, saying the name is difficult. How then is the karmic evil committed in that final interval to be eradicated? If it is not eliminated, is not birth unattainable? If we entrust ourselves to Amida's vow that grasps and never abandons us, then even through unforeseen circumstances, we commit an evil act and die without saying the Nimbutsu at the very end, we will immediately realize birth in the Pure Land. Moreover, even if we do say the name at the point of death, it will be nothing other than our expression of gratitude for Amida's benevolence, entrusting ourselves to the Buddha more and more as the very time of enlightenment draws near. The desire to eradicate one's karmic evil through saying the name arises from the heart of self-power. It is the basic intent of people who pray to be in a state of right-mindedness when their lives end. It therefore reveals an absence of shinjin, that is, other power. End quote. Namo Amida Butsu. The Tyranny of Time by Gansen John Welch. Time runs slowly in the beginning, crawling, walking, running, then sprinting, as we inexorably age, and our life story grows page by page. Time almost imperceptibly gathers increasing pace, and as we inevitably grow old and deteriorate, time begins to race by at an ever-increasing rate, As we rush from womb to tomb and cradle to the grave, let us shed this pretense that we are brave in the face of certain death, and admit before our final dying breath that our heavy burden of negative karma will with complete certainty lead to rebirth in samsara, and another life of defeat and frustration, suffering and desperation, as we finally realize the truth that we were repeatedly told by the wise, that we are born but to die. Now is the time to ask why, and discover how to escape from this dreadful fate, caused by egoic craving, greed, ignorance, and hate. During the darkest depths of our despair, Amida, the greatest of all the Buddhas, shows that he cares for us, evil, foolish beings, his wise and compassionate eyes seeing the suffering of all sentient beings in samsara. Amida's primal vow releases us from the bondage of our negative karma in this age of irreversible Dharma decline, and carries us to his pure land sublime and divine. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, Amida Buddha. Homage to Amida Buddha. I take refuge in Amida Buddha. These verses were inspired by the following passage from pages 43 to 47 of Reverend Josho Adrian Cirlea's excellent book, The Meaning of Faith in Mbutsu in Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. Quote, Elements of genuine faith. 5. To accept the primal vow of Amida Buddha without any doubt and be sure of your birth in the Pure Land. After hearing the primal vow, you should have no doubt, think that the primal vow is reliable and that Amida Buddha will keep his promise and take you to his Pure Land if you entrust yourself to him, say his name, and wish to go there. Shinran Shonen said, Shinjin or faith is hearing the vow of the Tathagata and being free of doubt. Entrusting is to be free of doubt, believing deeply and without any double-mindedness that the Tathagata's primal vow is true and real. Hearing the inconceivable selected primal vow and the holy name of supreme wisdom without a single doubt is called true and real Shinjin. It is also called the diamond-like mind. Entrusting is to be free of doubt, believing deeply and without any double-mindedness that the Tathagata's primal vow is true and real. The great sage Sakyamuni teaches that Amida's land is easy to reach and calls the sentient beings who doubt the Pure Land path a person lacking eyes or lacking ears. Each of you should realize that you are certain to attain birth in the Pure Land. Concerning entrusting, one becomes sure of the attainment of birth. This mind, being deep trust, is like diamond. Renya Shonen said, However well you may study the scriptures, it is useless if you are not firmly settled in the faith of other power. If your faith in Amida with the belief that your birth in the Pure Land is settled continues without confusion until death, you will certainly attain birth. Honen Shonen said, The removal of doubt is called faith. Whatever you may see, whatever you may hear, if you believe that birth in the Pure Land is a certainty, you will never think that birth in the Pure Land is uncertain. This is the true meaning of faith. There is no need to reflect on virtue or vice, or to discuss the gravity of your negative karma. Establish an unshakable faith that if you simply mouth Namo Amida Butsu with the aspiration for birth in the Pure Land, you will most certainly attain birth in the Pure Land. The karma of this birth will be determined by your degree of faith. Once you understand this, birth in the Pure Land will be attained easily. The attainment of birth in the Pure Land will be uncertain only if you doubt this birth. The attainment of birth in the Pure Land will be certain if you believe in this birth. After all, the profound faith is the firm belief without a shadow of doubt that the primal vow never abandons any person, regardless of the gravity of their karma, and that anyone will with certainty attain birth in the Pure Land with just a single utterance of the name of Amida Buddha. To have no doubt also means that you have abandoned forever any idea of relying on your self-power in the matter of birth in the Pure Land. People who say the name and self-power all fail to entrust themselves to the Tathagata's primal vow. Faith is the heart and mind without doubt. To be free of self-power, having entrusted oneself to the other power of the primal vow, This is faith alone. Shinran Shonen admonishes us against doubting Amida's salvation. There is no cause for endlessly turning in transmigration greater than the hindrance of doubt. Know that because of doubt, one remains in the house of birth and death. When one doubts the inconceivable karmic power of the great vow, one remains in the 6 courses, the 4 manners of arising, the 25 forms of existence, and the 12 kinds of arising. We are to realize that up to now we have been wandering for eons in such a realm of illusion. Namo Amida Butsu. The Stormy Seas of Samsara by Gansen John Welch. Ceaselessly suffering and struggling in the stormy seas of samsara, only the ship of the vow of Amida Buddha can rescue and bring all sentient beings to Amida's pure land, so grasp and cling to Amida's helping hand that will lift you out of the ocean of pain. In this act there is no loss, only unfathomable gain. Give thanks with thought, word and deed to Amida who saves you in your great need, and realize that you in turn will save other suffering beings. But now your grave responsibility is to entrust your karmic destiny entirely, utterly and completely to Amida and his inconceivable gift of shinjin, which we can only receive if we begin to listen deeply to Amida Dharma and ask, this is our sacred task, questions of a good teacher with whom we can confer to clarify our uncertainties. Only then can we seize this precious opportunity to forever free ourselves from endless birth and death, and after our final breath be reborn in Sukhavati, Amida's land of bliss and peace, where all ignorance, folly and evil passions will cease, and as fully enlightened Buddhas will assist Amida to bring all beings who resist Amida's infinite compassion and wisdom into Sukhavati. Only then will our work be done. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, Amida Buddha. Homage to Amida Buddha. I take refuge in Amida Buddha. These verses were inspired by the following passage from pages 290 to 291 of Reverend Josho Adrian Cirlea's wonderful book, The Meaning of Faith and Nembutsu in Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. Quote, funeral verses on the death of the self-power mind. Once, a friend asked me to send him something meaningful on the occasion of Obon, Festival of the Dead. So I wrote these funeral verses, which comprise the essentials of our teaching and may also serve as a conclusion to this book. May the reader abandon all the delusions of self-power and live a new life of faith in the light of Amida Buddha. Cremate the old corpse of clinging to your so-called merits and spiritual realizations in the fire of the twofold profound conviction. Conduct daily funeral ceremonies for your attachment to self-power by entrusting to Amida's power of salvation as the smoke offering to provide to the departed, enjoy in the merit transference of coming back to this world to save all beings, and for the funeral monument, raise the Nembutsu of faith on the grave of different practices, teachings, and wrong views. Namo Amida Bu. 3 very important footnotes to the above funeral verses on the death of the self-power mind are provided below. First, the twofold profound conviction, or Nishu Jinshin. 1. To know that you are a person of deep karmic limitations, incapable of attaining Buddhahood through your own power. 2. To know that only Amida Buddha can save you through his vow power without asking anything from you. Second, in the practices based on personal power, the practitioner earns virtues which he transfers for his own enlightenment. But in the case of other power, or the Pure Land Way, the transference of merits takes place from Amida Buddha to those who entrust to him. This transference of merit, or echo, carries the follower to the Pure Land where he attains nirvana, or perfect enlightenment. As already explained in this book, the merit transference from Amida to the practitioner has 2 aspects. 1, the merit transference of going forth, also echo, and 2, the merit transference of returning to this world to save all beings, Genso echo. The first refers to the fact that through Amida's transference of merit, we go to his Pure Land where we become Buddhas, while the second one means that after we become Buddhas in the Pure Land, by sharing the same enlightenment as Amida, we return to the various samsaric realms and universes to save all beings. Third and last footnote. Different practices, teachings, and wrong views. In his primal vow, Amida Buddha asks us to do only 3 things: entrust to him, say his name and faith, and wish to be born in his Pure Land after death. So we should do this exclusively and abandon any other Buddhist or non-Buddhist teachings and practice. The wrong views we must abandon are, for example, the belief in a supreme creator deity or eternalism, or that only matter exists or nihilism, as well as various other non-Buddhist teachings which run contrary to the Buddha Dharma, but also the heresies taught by some modernists who claim to be teachers of our school, but support such distorted views like Amida being a myth or a fictional character or a symbol or a metaphor, that the Pure Land is here and now or in the mind and not after death, etc. Generally speaking, if we want to be without wrong views, we must understand and agree with the orthodox teaching we find in the sacred texts of our schools. End quote. Namo Amida Butsu.